The Cascadia Subduction Zone could cause the worst natural disaster in the history of North America, geologists warn. The Cascadia Subduction Zone off the coast of Northern California, Oregon, Washington State, and Vancouver Island, British Columbia of Canada, could cause the worst natural disaster in the history of North America. The Pacific Northwest earthquake could reach up to a 9 magnitude and trigger a tsunami and shake for 3 to 5 minutes. Can you imagine? Mother Earth slowly reveals her secrets, and this time it's a fault line deep into the belly of the planet, and it's a whopper. Its name is a whopper, the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Its gargantuan size and potential power amaze earthquake experts who say it could cause the worst natural disaster in the history of North America if it ruptures entirely. And this is where it would take place. This quake maker sits at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean where the seabed meets the North American tectonic plate. In all, it stretches 700 miles along the Pacific Northwest, from British Columbia's Vancouver Island to Washington to Oregon to Northern California to Cape Mendocino. And in fact, the Cascadia already has made history, causing the largest earthquake in the continental United States on January 26, 1700. And that's when the Cascadia unleashed one of the world's biggest quakes, causing a tsunami so big it rampaged across the Pacific, and it damaged coastal villages all the way across the Pacific in Japan. Now it's a question of when the Cascadia will strike again. The big one, earthquake, could hit any time. If the Cascadia were to experience a large magnitude earthquake, the trembler and resulting tsunami could kill more than 11,000 people, injuring more than 26,000, according to the FEMA model. Everyone knows that Cascadia's cousin in California, the San Andreas Fault. It gets all the scary glamour, with even a movie this recently, San Andreas, dramatizing the apocalypse of Western U.S. And the truth is that San Andreas is a lightweight compared to the Cascadia. The Cascadia could deliver a quake that's many times stronger, plus a tsunami going with it. Cascadia can make an earthquake almost 30 times more energetic than the San Andreas to start with, and then it generates a tsunami at the same time, which the side-by-side motion of the San Andreas cannot do, said Chris Goldfinger, a professor of geophysics at the Oregon State University. The Cascadia is capable of delivering a 9 magnitude earthquake, an awesome show of force by Mother Nature. You're going to have 3 to 5 minutes of shaking, he said. And if you're used to earthquakes in California, they typically last only 15 to 30 seconds, and before you are really sure of what it is, what's happening, it's all over, Goldfinger says. In this case, 3 minutes, and I've been in a 9 in Japan, he says. 3 minutes is an eternity. It's a very, very long time, Goldfinger says. We'll lose a lot of bridges, we'll lose our highway routes. The coast will probably be closed by downed bridges or landslides or both, and because there will be damage to all of the roadway, the various highways, various infrastructure, and it will be very difficult to get around and assess what's going on and how you might be able to reach people and provide them with some of the resources they may need, said Major Richard Ouellette of the Civil Air Patrol's Pacific Region. Prior to the 1980s, the Cascadia was overlooked because it didn't seem to move or cause quakes. Scientists now know differently. The more we learn about it, the less we like it because it's turning out to be a big hazard as well, Goldfinger says. To prove that Cascadia has ruptured before, scientists studied the so-called ghost forests of the Pacific Northwest. Underneath the plants and trees, dirt and mud, is a record of changes to the landscapes. And by digging into it, the U.S. Geological Survey geologist Brian Atwater found the proof of one of the world's biggest earthquakes. USGS geologist Brian Atwater shows a legacy from when the Cascadia ruptured in 1700. It created a tsunami whose impact is marked today by a layer of sand atop what was the forest floor on a bank near Copalis Beach, Washington. he found that after the earthquake, the coast dropped about 5 feet. And then several minutes later, the tsunami overtook a spruce forest, bathing it with ocean water. The trees could not survive in the salt water, but many of their hollowed out dead trunks still stand today, markers of Cascadia's devastation centuries ago. Through examining the rings on those remaining trunks and roots, scientists narrowed down when the Cascadia ruptured, between 1680 to 1720. Armed with this information, Japanese earthquake researcher Kenji Satake turned to diaries and logs from prominent families and temples of the Shogun era that go back to the 600s. The quest was to find a record of a tsunami that was not accompanied by a storm or a quake in Japan. Scientists were already curious about whether a tidal wave could have come from a North American earthquake. After all, researchers concluded that South American quakes caused tsunamis off Japan in 1586, 1687, 1730, 1751, and 1837. From multiple records, it became clear that an orphan tsunami, devoid of shaking or a storm in Japan, did slam into its coast in January 1700. There are fierce debates in the scientific community, and you know about lots of details, but not about the main conclusion, Atwater said. No way to predict the next big one, though. Unfortunately, you cannot see the Cascadia Fault as you can the San Andreas, which leaves a visible line in some parts of California. The Cascadia lies underwater, where the oceanic plate actually dives under the North American plate. The Cascadia Subduction Zone derives its name from the Cascade Ridge of volcanic mountains that parallel the fault from afar, and from how one plate subducts or goes under another. There's no way of predicting when Cascadia will author the next big one, Goldfinger says. He says, I wish there were, but no, there isn't. We cannot look forward and say we are due to overdue, really. And this is Unbended Reality. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.